All right, without any further ado, we want to welcome out the 5th District candidates. So could you please help me welcome them to the stage? Give it up for our 5th District candidates. Thanks, Raju. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, so we're in alphabetical order, so that's how we're going to start the questions. The way the formats are going to work is we're going to give a 2-minute open. We're going to have a round of questions with a minute 15-second responses, so it's got to be quick. And then we're going to do a spitfire round from questions from you that I've already got some questions from the audience, and we're just going to lob them out there. We're going to let anybody take them as they so please, all right? It's going to be kind of fun. So that's how we're going to roll. So Raju, if you want to give us your open, and the floor is yours.
Good evening, fellow Republicans, esteemed constituents. My name is Raju Chintala. I am Raju. I am for you. I am a husband, father, speech language pathologist, political leader, community leader, businessman, economic advisor, and most importantly, I am a Republican. I have been serving Hamilton County Republican Party for the last 7 years as a treasurer. I may be the longest treasurer serving the Hamilton County Republican Party. I also served the Republican Party for 21 years. I have 2 master's degrees, one master's degree in business administration from Indiana Wesleyan University, another master's degree from speech and hearing from India. I am an immigrant. I also came to this country legally. It took me 16 years. Thank you. I've been in this state for 30 years. With building global relationships for Indiana across the world, that resulted into $24 billion foreign direct investment into the state of Indiana and 100,000 jobs into the state of Indiana. I know how hard work it is. I worked very hard in order to make my life protect American dream, support small businesses, advocate for veterans. I'm the only candidate who is saying that we must rebuild our Marion VA hospital so that veterans don't have to travel outside the 5th District. State-of-the-art hospital we will be building in the 5th District for veterans. I traveled across the state of Indiana. I worked at Indiana Economic Development Corporation. I ran the small businesses. I know how to run small business. I have government experience. I have a healthcare experience and business. I live in Carmel with my wife, Dr. Prasanna Chintala, who could not be here. She's working. She's a geriatric psychiatrist. She takes care of mental health patients, hundreds of them every day. My son, who is a 3rd-year medical student at IU School of Medicine. I have a small dog. I'm sure most of you have seen on Facebook, Snowball, mini Eskimo. I am going to work for you. I will be your voice. I will represent truly you. I will represent Hoosier values in Washington, D.C. I am Raju. I am for you. Thank you.
Well, first, thank you for hosting this, Micah, and to Life Church. I appreciate that. So my name is Max Engling. I'm running for Congress here in the 5th District. And first and foremost, I'm a Christian. So I go to Harbor Shores Church, which is not far away. Second, I'm a husband. So my wife, Kelsey, is right over here. We've been married for 12 years. Third, I'm a father. And 2 of my 4 kids are up here, Livia and Miles. The other 2 are being babysitted at home. And I'm a conservative. And while I'm not a career politician, I do have 14 years of public service, both here in Indiana and out in Washington, D.C. And I think I'm a uniquely qualified candidate to get to work right away in Washington on behalf of our conservative values. So what drives me? Faith, family, and hard work. On the faith side, I mentioned that I'm a Christian. And when I look out at the country and I see the entire United States, it seems like, is pulling off of the Judeo-Christian values that it was built on, we have to get back to that. Now, when you look at family, I have 4 kids of my own, as I mentioned, but I'm also the second oldest of 8. And when you look out at the future, you say, how do we pull our country back for the next generation? And a lot of people want to say, okay, that's into the future. But anymore, it's not. It's now and into the future. Things have gotten really bad. The last part is hard work. So I've worked my whole life, probably since before I should have. I think I started when I was 13 or 14, but you got to do that in a big family. And then I worked baling hay, detasseling corn, and then I worked construction the entire time I was in, or most of the time I was in college, because I had to pay my own way as one of 8 kids. And then it took me out to Washington, D.C. The Tea Party movement happened. I was involved here locally in that, and I said, I need to help the conservative folks that flipped the House in Washington. So I went out without knowing anyone and got a job and said, how do I make it better? I ended up in a position where I was training members of Congress on how to do this exact job. We're ready to get going on day 1. I think I'm the only candidate that's prepared to say, let's work for our conservative values and let's get to work right away. Thank you.
Doug Goodrich.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. I'm really humbled and honored to be in front of you. My name is Chuck Goodrich. I am President and CEO of Gaylor Electric. And also your representative for House District 29, right here representing this church in this area. And I can tell you that from my perspective, there are great folks here from competition. But, you know, I was born and raised in a small town in Rowan, Indiana, farming community, impoverished, about 100 miles north of here. And, you know, that's where my parents taught me and my siblings the fundamental conservative principles of loving God, loving one another. Your word is your bond. But most of all, what they taught me was we have the greatest opportunity to live in the greatest nation ever known to the human race. And I can tell you that is what drives me, that American dream. So, you know, when I look at that and I think to myself, okay, how do we protect that American dream? That's why I'm running for Indiana 5th Congressional District. I've been married for 30 years. My beautiful wife, Tricia. I have 4 awesome kids that I raised. I'm an empty nester. That's kind of weird to get used to. But I can tell you this. I'm honored. My daughter had our first grandchild, and now I get the nickname of Pop Pop and Mimi. My wife said you can't use Grandpa and Grandma anymore. But I can tell you that when I think about that and I think about my grandson, all I can think about is the American dream. I think about me being a product of the American dream. And I can tell you that I will work every day to make sure that every person remembers that we live in the greatest nation ever known to the human race and to protect the American dream. So thank you for being here.
Mark Hurt.
The time has come to turn to God to reassert our trust in Him for the healing of America. That was a quote by Ronald Reagan, and I think that rings very true today. I'm the only candidate in the race. There's 9 candidates that was born and raised and lived in the district. I was born in Marion, grew up in Summitville, Madison Grant High School, where Max's wife's from, and went to Taylor University, teaching and coaching. Then I studied foreign policy at Baylor and then law school at Michigan State. I have a unique skill set that I think does prepare me to start on day 1. At the federal level, I helped Fred Grandy, Dan Coates, a congressman and a senator. I was with a team that created the health savings accounts back in the 1990s, handled the committee activity, did conference committees with the Senate, would draft amendments that would become law. Married a lady that became a stock analyst, moved us to Detroit. She had 3 Bible studies praying she wouldn't have to go. We ended up in Detroit. So I helped Governor Engler as his health care advisor and traveled the state to defeat the Clinton health bill. Worked with NGA and the autos. Came back local, and I've had a law office in Noblesville over by Tailored Systems and back in Kokomo for 25 years. I know about sweat equity. I've dealt a lot with dementia, mental health, small brick in the wall justice. Did prosecuting for 25 years part-time. It's taught me that a lot of the people in jail need some mental health treatment. I think the thing I want to say is I too, like Max, believe that faith and family is the key. I became a Christian back in 6th grade Bible school in Summitville, and it's changed my life. That's why I'm alive. That's what I believe. That forms who I am, that relationship with Christ. And I appreciate you being here tonight and listening to all the candidates.
Sure.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Malater. I'm a CPA, but as opposed to me telling you all about myself, you can figure that out. I'm going to tell you about what I'm planning to do and why. So, about 20 years ago, when President Clinton left office, our country was riding high. The world was at peace. People seemed to get along, and our country was in the midst of generating its 4th consecutive budget surplus. In fact, the head of the Federal Reserve at the time said we'd be able to pay off all of our national debt by 2006. Sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it? In the last couple of decades, we've lost our way as a country fiscally. First, we had 3 blowout tax cuts that largely benefited people like myself at the time, a 1%er. Then we had wars in Afghanistan and Iraq that ginned up several $1 trillion of debt. And then our COVID spending was the icing on the cake, leaving us $34 trillion in the hole. That is why inflation is hurting so many of us. We've destroyed the value of the US dollar. Now, certainly all the presidents have had a role in this mess, but the real culprits are our Congress, because they're the folks that determine how it is that we spend our money. We have to send them packing. We must term limit the Congress. Now, it's been said, without a vision, the people perish. In my particular campaign, I have a vision of solving some of our country's most severe problems, specifically including the economy and public safety. But the real vision, the important vision, is that we term limit the Congress and then start solving some of our real problems. So this is why I'm running as a Republican, to deal with these economic issues. But again, the first step is to deal with term limits, my key plank. So I'm glad you all came here this evening. I hope we have a robust debate overall. And afterwards, we'll have a bunch of questions. So I hope we're productive. Be well.
Good evening. My name is L.D. Powell, and you may not have heard of me. That's fine. I'm not a career politician. This is my first time running for office. I'm a father of 3 boys. I'm a Christ follower, and I'm a Navy veteran. But I want to be honest with you. I'm not entirely happy about being here tonight. I'm frustrated and angry about what I see going on in Washington, or the lack of work that's getting done in Washington. I watch the TV and I see a lot of people posing and posturing for the cameras, but the same problems continue year after year. So I watch that and I say, I think I can do better. So instead of complaining, I decided to jump in the race. My number 1 priority, though, is securing our borders and stopping the drugs and the bad people coming across our borders. And that's a very personal issue for me as well. About 20 years ago, I entered the hospital with a medical condition, spent 10 days in the hospital on some pretty powerful painkillers, came out with one problem solved and another one started. I got into a fight for my life. And through the grace of God, and I was one of the fortunate ones, was able to check into Fairbanks Hospital, got the help I needed. But that opened my eyes to a whole new world out there. People like you, people like me, people like your children, who are being decimated by these drugs coming over our border. And that needs to stop now. They're killing our people, 100,000 people a year, and that's just totally unacceptable. So that's why I'm running. That's my number 1 priority. I'm a conservative. All the other issues matter, but for me, the precious lives of our people matter the most, and I want to go and fight to get those borders secured first thing, day one. I'm LD Powell, and I appreciate your vote.
Hello. How you guys doing tonight? Good. My name is Larry Savage. I, too, was born and raised my whole life in the 5th District, so we might fact-check that. I am a common citizen. I'm a middle-class citizen, been poor most of my life, tired of what's going on in Washington, D.C., tired of the rich getting elected all the time and not standing up for what they go to Washington, D.C. To begin with. They don't represent us. We're forgotten. I'm tired of it. I can't say it because I'm in church, but I'm very, very mad. You all should be too, and I think that's why this place is full tonight. I'm tired of being beat down. I'm tired. It makes me emotional. We're just beat down, taxes, war all the time. It's got to stop. You got to send people in your reflection to Washington, D.C. People to love you. People that care about you. I'm not saying none of you do, but I'm tired of sending you to Washington, D.C. I'm tired, beat down over it. I'm a commissioner in the city of Anderson. We're doing a lot of good things in the city. We're bringing jobs, factories back to the city. And like everybody else, I'm also married, got 3 kids. God is number 1 on my list, wife is second, kids are third. I was a fireman, EMT. I've saved a lot of lives, have life-saving awards, have been down in the trenches, and I know what fentanyl and the drugs coming across the border and the invasion are doing to our country. It has got to stop. And if we, the people, the common citizens, don't get in there and stop it, it won't get done. Elect people that are like you, and let's see what happens. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure and honor to be here tonight. I actually was supposed to be in D.C., but I thought it's important. Debates are important, elections are important, and this is going to be probably one of the most important elections in our life, and I'm not exaggerating that. D.C. is a broken place, and I hope we have a discussion today, not just attacks and BS and telling lies, but actually what we're going to do and what we've done being in the trenches. That's what really matters. And what kind of trenches we've been throughout life, I don't question. Listen, there are a lot of good people. But are these people willing to go fight and win against brutal, radical, tyrannical government that attack and organize with big money and on offense nonstop? Are we going to deliver on these issues? And that's how we are tested. And I'll be honest with you, I never thought in my craziest dream that I would ever be in politics. When I came here 2 decades now, 24 years ago, young, idealistic reading from Alexis de Tocqueville about democracy of America, and having these ideas, this is the country of freedoms, of prosperity. I could not believe what's happened to our country. And it made me crazy enough to get up and stand up and not give up and say, I cannot give up. For all of the people who sacrifice lives for our freedoms and for the future of our children, I cannot. And we have to all think about it, because this is going to be very sequential election in important times, because the republic is falling, and I'm not joking. I've been in the trenches for probably my kids were in strollers. It's 20 years now, fought a lot of battles, but we're going to win this war. We have to win this war, and I want to help good people. We have good people in Washington, D.C., not too many, but we have. I want to help good people to win. I want to have us to deliver for the people and fix all the problems, and I want to help President Trump to deliver. If we don't have him, we're screwed, and our country cannot be screwed because it's too much at stake. So I love you, but fight with us, with me. You have a good choice, but I will never let you down. Thank you for having me tonight.
All right. Thank you, candidates. Okay, what we're going to do now, Max, we're going to start with you since we started with Raju. So, first question we would like to ask is, out of all of the federal agencies in Washington, D.C., which agencies do you think we should get rid of or reform? And you can't say all of them. You got to actually be specific. All right. So.
Great question. So I think probably starting with the Department of Education, I think that was, so originally it was supposed to be the states that had that responsibility anyway. Now the federal government is taking so much and saying we're in charge of this, and we're not. We homeschool our children, and we don't want the government involved in our schooling. And that may not be right for everyone to homeschool, but I think you want to have those options, and the Department of Education doesn't allow that. But let me look a little bit broader than that first. We need to reauthorize agencies in Washington. What that means is, if you're getting money from the federal government as an agency, but you have not been told by Congress exactly how you can spend that money, you don't get the money anymore. You have to come in front of Congress, and Congress has to do the hard work of saying, let's talk through, you testify, you say what you're going to do, and then Congress says, no, this is what you're going to do, and if you don't do that, we're not appropriating any money to you. And I think that's going to clean out a large piece of what we see with what we'd consider the administrative state that is taking over more and more and more and eating up so much. It takes a lot of hard work, that's right. So I think each authorizing committee needs to have potentially a subcommittee inside of it that says your job is to look at every agency that you're responsible for and start to work down the path of reauthorizing or getting rid of agencies that are redundant at this point.
Thank you for the question. This Department of Education has to go away, has to be defunded. I know Max already said that, but there's no question that serving at the state level on the education team for the Republicans, every time we tried to make some kind of adjustment in our education system in Indiana, we got overread by the feds. All I ever heard was, how in the world we can do things here in the state that's overridden by the feds. And so I would start with DOE. Next one would be the National Labor Relations Board. The amount of money that we spend across the nation on labor relations, 1,100 cases, I believe, is the number. And that can be handled in our existing court system. There's no question about that. I've talked to folks about that, and that can happen. And of course, then we got to look at reforming the FBI, the CIA. This whole entire weaponization that's happening to us and our liberty is freaking crazy. It's crazy. And so I would just say, because you said, we need to look at that and figure out how we put them back on track and actually supporting America instead of going after folks that vote conservative.
Department of Energy's a lot of nuclear energy. People don't realize that. I think within each department, you've got parts that can be cut out. Diversity offices that really push the ideology and takes the power away from the parent or the school board. That's key. I think Department of Education, which was created in 1979 by Jimmy Carter, it's not been around that long. We shouldn't have a Department of Education. And I do see a role for special needs kids, handicap, Title II in the real low poverty areas. But Congress needs to reassume its duty, reclaim its jurisdictional power and legislative control, the power of the purse, and they could handle appropriating that money out accordingly. I agree there are some agencies like ICE and Border Patrol where we need to increase the budget. Military preparedness is going to be talked about. Within the Department of Defense, we really need to work on getting more people. We're losing the war on getting recruits. We need kids that want to sacrifice, give time for their country, and really devote themselves in the servant leadership. So, yeah.
Well, opposed to being redundant here in terms of mentioning other agencies that have already been talked about, I'd probably take a little different tact. I just got done listening to Elon Musk's book, his biography, and there was an interesting thing that happened when he took over Twitter. Within a short period of time, he fired 75% of the people that were working there, and he actually found that the company was operating more efficiently and had much better attitude of individuals. So I kind of like Vivek Ramaswamy's idea of actually taking a hatchet to a number of the different departments, because again, when you have such a bloated set of organizations, there is a lot of fat everywhere as opposed to essentially, picking one and annihilating it. So that would be my approach. I'd go ahead and get to a point where we do a severe cut. Severe is actually a term of art, obviously. But I think that's where I would probably approach things as opposed to just gutting one particular agency. I think by and far it would be something that would be more efficient to do. So.
Yes, Department of Education, last I read, there were 4,400 employees, a $68 billion budget. So I don't know how realistic it will be to get rid of it all, but we could scale it back for sure. To Patrick's point, there's room for improvement. One I'd also like to see cut back is our IRS. We have a tax system that is so complex and convoluted, and if you're not a tax attorney or can afford one or a lobbyist or can get in and lobby for your own special interest, you're out of luck. And so now our country is suffering. We have these huge deficits and debts, and so we need reform of our tax code, and we could eliminate most of the IRS with a simplified tax code.
Yeah, so LD kind of stole my thunder on that. IRS, definitely. We need to go to a flat tax system in this country. You look, we're paying $200 billion in total, I think, into Ukraine here overall. I honestly believe that we pay too much in taxes. If we can afford to do all that kind of stuff, we're paying too much in taxes. I understand why we have to do it, but we need to go to a flat tax. The IRS is just is criminal. They're stealing from us. They steal from you. They take your stuff, and it's just not right. And then the Department of Education. The only thing that I'm getting out of the Department of Education anymore is they're teaching our boys how to be girls and our girls how to be boys. They've taken Christ out of school. Locally, you just got to stand up. You got to take your kid out of school. You have to teach them how you want to teach them. My kids are all public school kids. I believe in them to a point, but don't be afraid. When we started this program off, there has to be a dad in the home, right? I was in the home all of my kids' life, and I'm going to continue to be. But the Department of Education is demasculizing the men. They're taking the men out of this country, and we got to stop it, and we got to stand up for our men in our country also.
I'm actually on Thomas Massey's bill about Department of Education, but actually the most tyrannical and really dangerous department right now is Department of Justice. It has FBI under its jurisdiction. Truly is. It became a truly oppression of the American people, and it is very dangerous. They're very clever. You see what they're doing to President Trump, and but you see what they do in a lot of people that don't have the money to defend themselves, destroying people's life. But I'll tell you what I've been doing, so I can, you will see this week how many conservatives are going to hold the ground on few issues. That's why it's so hard, But I'll tell you what I've done. I tried to change the rules, that we actually have people on rules committee, that leadership cannot push crazy bills to have 12 appropriations. I put pressure on McCarthy. I said, you don't put debt commission and border security on the floor, I'm going to vacate you. I'm not sure if Gates is going to do it, but I'll do it. I threatened him to do it, to pull that on the floor. I forced him, I voted against Republican rules, because I said we cannot continue the spending, inflating Nancy Pelosi spending. We're running $2 trillion deficits, $34 trillion in debt. Inflation is going to destroy people on fixed income and people on lower income. And we're going to destroy middle class if we double taxes. And that is going to be socialist. So I fought with Republicans too, because the other side is so corrupt. But if we are not willing to change the reforms, the rules within the House, and have authorization, which I forced too, or when 70% spending is not authorized, we are going to fail, because it's all about money, and that's what matters.
I think they covered pretty much all of them, but I don't sound like a brother of Vivek Ramaswamy. People are already calling me brother of Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't want to go into details. Education, education, education. Federal government has no role in education. Education must be left to the local government. Parents, grandparents, foster care parents, like in this congregation, are the best decision maker for their children. What is the best for education? What is the best for their studies? What is the best for their school system? They are the decision makers. I leave it there. Parents. My grandma, who made the decision to send my dad to school, and he became the first one to graduate in the family. And then I got my degree. That's why I came to this country with the education masters. I want to reform one more thing. I want to get rid of a lot of agencies, but let me say one is healthcare, which is most important, but immigration. We will have a shortage of healthcare professionals, many healthcare professional shortage in the coming 20, 30 years. Veterans are already waiting list for 3 to 6 months for appointment and diagnosis and treatment. My background is a healthcare. I worked as a speech language pathologist in this district. I must have seen more than 60,000 patients. That must be changed. We should propose, my goal is to propose a separate visa to recruit physicians and nurses to fulfill healthcare professionals so that we don't have waiting list for 6 months to 9 months to treat a cancer patient. Thank you.
All right, let's turn to borders. We want to talk about our southern border. What would you do if you were in Congress to fight for our southern border? What would you do about the Ukrainian border? And what would you do about the border with Gaza and Israel? So borders all the way. We're going to start with Chuck Goodrich.
Yeah, thank you very much. I can tell you the first thing we need to do is build the wall. I mean, there is no question about it. I mean, I was proud to work with President Trump when he was president, and I got to tell you, I was proud what he did with closing the border. And I think the administration has actually destroyed that. And so we, as a state and a country, we need to actually support building the wall. We need to actually support more money, and this is going to sound kind of crazy, but more money to our border security. And the way we do that is when we talk about eliminating these actual costs that we have in the government, the bloated government, and removing that cost and devoting it to making the border secure. Because I can tell you, we got to quit letting folks in this country that want to destroy it. We got to quit letting these drugs that are coming across the border that are killing, like you heard, 100,000 folks. They're killing our kids. They're making them addicted. And I can tell you, we have to stop that. I got to tell you, Israel is a huge ally to us. And I can tell you, we have to support our allies. Absolutely, 100%. And again, we get that money from not allowing a cost to be bloated government, but put it towards Israel because they're our ally and they keep that region safe. And lastly, no more money to Ukraine.
Really believe strongly in standing up for Israel. They're the republic in the Middle East. They're our democratic ally, and the land isn't theirs just to stay in. They own it. And there's several verses in Genesis that talk about how they got that land and why they own the land. It's not theirs to occupy. We've got to stand up to the Houthi rebels and Hezbollah and Hamas, who are Iranian proxies. They're in the Middle East. The Houthis are shooting at American ships, our servicemen, missile warfare, underwater drones over the land. Definitively and decisively, we've got to knock them out. 12% of our trade goes to the Suez Canal internationally. Red Sea and Suez Canal, those channels have to stay open. With Iran, we can't let them get an Iranian nuclear weapon. Gaza, it shows a two-state solution doesn't work, and Israel has to have a border. Part of what the Houthis are doing is trying to deflect attention from what's happening with Hamas. We have to go in and finish, take out the leadership that came in and killed innocent Jewish people. And I ask you, who's talking about the hostages? There's about 50 hostages down there, American hostages. We can't just stand by. We have to stand up for Israel. On the border, very important issue. There's areas where there's rivers that meander. We've got to have satellite technology, tracers. We've got to have more resources for the ICE and for the Border Patrol. We've got to secure the area. You cannot talk numbers on migration until you secure that border. It's an invasion right now. Once we get that done, then we can talk numbers.
And I got to cut you off there, Mark. I know it's a lot to get real quick, but yes, that was. Yes,
I wasn't
sorry
in
about
math.
that.
Sorry about that,
you were
Mike.
on a roll, but yes, thank you, Mark.
Hello again. I am not in favor of continually funding our foreign wars in general. What I've seen in Congress is there is much more interest in the concern over Ukraine's border than there is over our southern border right now. And to me, I'm half Ukrainian, so it's not like I have, no heart in the matter. Real leaders, people like President Trump, first of all, go ahead and they diffuse tension when it's boiling up, just as he did with Kim Jong-un in North Korea, little rocket man. They end senseless wars after we've been spending billions and billions, trillions of dollars, as he had set up for Joe Biden to do in Afghanistan, and Joe blew it. And they find the priority to keep us safe. So just as President Trump did in wiping out ISIS immediately and having the border wall and the other protections from Mexico. So again, I talk to constituents, I talk to people like you multiple times every week in towns in our congressional district, and overwhelmingly they are opposed to continually funding these foreign wars. So that's how I feel about it. Obviously, the border is an important thing. We need to build a wall. So that's my general thoughts. Thank you.
I'm resentful of our president telling Israel how to fight a war, fight with the terrorists that want to kill them. The terrorists, they don't want to negotiate. They want to eliminate the state of Israel. And you cannot negotiate with people that want to wipe you out. So we need to support them, and we need to stop telling them how to defend themselves. Let's just give them the tools and the means necessary to do that. For Ukraine, as a military guy, I don't take it lightly going to war. But I do think if we are going to commit and support Ukraine, we need to do it consistently. We need to stop fiddling around and giving them money, not giving them money. We need to supply them with the resources that they need, and we need to train them and let the Ukrainians fight like they want to fight. I'd rather have the Ukrainians fighting than sending my sons to Europe to fight. For our border, we need to put pressure on China and Mexico. The leaders there can put their thumb on the bad actors there, and we can take the profit out of this. We have trade levers that we can use with China and Mexico to make it so painful or unprofitable for them to turn a blind eye to the manufacturing and distribution of these drugs that are killing our citizens. To me, it's an act of war, what they're allowing to happen. Thank you.
Yeah, so I agree. That stinks going last because everybody said everything you're going to say. So, but yeah, so I'm 100% with Israel. I would die for Israel. It's biblical. I mean, it's just us. We defend everybody else's borders. Why don't we defend ours? Right? I can't tell you. I'm a businessman in Anderson. I deal with a lot of rental property. And you would not believe how many people I see a day that have other countries, Venezuela, Honduras, even seen some stuff from Syria. That's scary. I mean, we are being invaded, y'all. We are being invaded. And it's not a secret. But as far as Hamas hiding behind schools and hospitals and little kids, it's time to do something. We gotta peace on earth, right? I mean, how do we? It's a long, complicated answer, but yeah, I stand with Israel, and I say we defend our borders, and I also don't agree with sending any more money to Ukraine. There are Christian lives in Ukraine too. So it's a balancing act, right? You don't want to see innocent people die, but you know, we have people here in our country, homeless vets, homelessness. So a lot of that $200 million could go into our own country and take care of a lot of our problems. And that's what this country is failing to do, is take care of its people with the money that we send all over the world to people that hate us. They absolutely hate us, but we continue to fund them to continue to hate us. And it's got to stop. Sorry.
Actually, President Trump had peace restraints policy when he saw Putin. He said, "Not under my watch." You see this? My rocket can take right top of that Kremlin start. He says, "Is it true?" He says, 5% is always true, and no one knew because he could, and that's why we had peace, and that's why we had Abraham Accords. That's why we had, Israel, being actually supported Israel in our lives. But what will happen right now? China, Russia, and Iran are on attack. And they are really teamed up. And we have a serious problem. So we need to have policy. This president failed the American people, for Israelis, he failed people in Ukraine, he failed everyone because he doesn't have policy, his politics, and doesn't care about people's life. So we did push, I pushed last 2 years ago, I said we need to have not as long as it takes, but as fast as we can with proper oversight and strategy. I was dragged through Mard that I said, oh, she's pro-Kremlin, the same people that dragged Trump through Kremlin. But we have to have a foreign policy, and it's a problem. Israel must win that war, but first we have to protect our border. This is the #1 national security issue. I've been recently attacked because I belong to a group of conservatives that hold in the foreign aid, not because I don't understand the importance, and the aid to Ukraine only should be on loan, only too, but I also understand if we don't protect our border, we're screwed. And I've been attacked as having Ukrainian heritage. I've been dragged through mud by CNN, but I don't care because this is #1 issue. And I'll be the one, a few conservatives voted this week because of no border security against some very tough bills.
Let me answer this question in 4 ways. The first is the security of the border. Secure the southern border. That's a national security threat. It is not an issue of Republicans. It is not an issue of Democrats. It is not an issue of independents. We must close the border. Many times, I must not agree with the President Donald Trump, what he says, but I 100% agree with him. Build the wall. We must continue to build the wall, shut the border. That's a national security threat. Second is Israel. Israel is our greatest allies. We must stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel and support whatever it takes to make sure we provide every resource available for them to fight against the terrorism. The Hamas is a terrorist organization that should be wiped off from this planet. Every resource should be put together, wipe off any terrorist organization on this planet, and our allies should get together. Our military should have every resource on that. Ukraine war. We must stop funding Ukraine war. We should the greatest supplies to our allies. Diplomacy. We use our resources to solve that problem, but we must stop sending dollars to Ukraine war. Thank you.
Borders. One, I've been to the Texas border, I've been to the Arizona border, and I've seen it firsthand. We need to, 1, stop the incentives that are drawing folks up from Central and South America. 2, we need to build the wall. And 3, we need to resource our Border Patrol and make sure that they have what they need to stop the invasion. Second border, Ukraine. I've been to the border of Poland and Ukraine after the war started. We saw it firsthand. I talked to the 82nd Airborne. They said, we get aid out of Europe, we get aid out of the United States, we put it on Ukrainian trucks, and we say, goodbye, we hope it gets where it's going. That's not good enough for me. We need no blank checks being written out. You might say we can have a discussion of, is this the point where we say we're going to hit Russia and China really hard? Maybe, but we can't have that discussion until first we stop writing blank checks out to Ukraine. Third border, I was at the border of the Gaza Strip and Israel. We stayed with the families that were in Kafah Azah, the first group that got wiped out by Hamas. I've seen the people, I've talked to their kids, and I know what they went through after the fact. We have to make sure that our greatest ally in the Middle East can defend their own borders and fight their own wars. I think not only is it a matter of political significance, but I also think the state of Israel is a matter of religious significance, and that we're going to see that at some point in the future.
With the recent fight in Washington, we've seen that TikTok has come under scrutiny. What is the government's role in putting a ban on TikTok, or should they stay away from that, in your opinion? We're going to start with Mark.
Okay. When you look at the Gen Xers, the millennials, and you ask them about the Middle East, you'll get about 70% saying we should support Hamas. Well, why is that? Because most of them are watching TikTok. Their views are being shaped by TikTok. You know, in China, they don't allow their children to watch TikTok. And if they're using TikTok, it's for instructional purposes. They use that as a weapon here in the United States, and I think that should be banned. I think we need to control TikTok and not allow that to really just deteriorate the minds of our young people. Is the question just on TikTok, Micah?
Or you can go wherever you want.
I didn't touch on the Ukraine, but I mentioned to Victoria, I think it's time for a ceasefire. You know, the Russian soldiers have retired for years. It's Russian speaking around Crimea. That mineral-rich area in the Donbass needs to be protected, and there does need to be a border. And when Obama and Lugar pulled the nukes out of Ukraine, we said we'd have their back. Trump's right, it's got to be an action with NATO. We have to work together, but we don't have unlimited resources. And that's why that border issue is so important. We've got to stop spending all this money on people that aren't U.S. citizens.
Well, with respect to TikTok in particular, there's actually legislation right now to essentially require a sale to a U.S. owner or essentially put them out of business. So I think that issue is probably taking care of itself a little bit. But I want to talk about some of the other social media companies. When Elon Musk took over Twitter, now X, he ended up discovering by the release of the Twitter files that there was a huge amount of collaboration between the federal government and their organization to essentially take away or lower the visibility of certain tweets, and in other instances just cancel certain individuals that were not following the U.S. government line. So for example, a number of real strong health experts essentially got their accounts canceled because of that. So one of my proposals that I have in legal reform is to essentially allow content providers that have either been demonetized or deplatformed or silenced in another way to sue each of the social media companies to the extent that they are collaborating with the federal government to silence them. So that's a key issue that I'm thinking about here. And it really needs to apply to Facebook and all the other social media companies as well. Thank you.
This is a dicey one for me. I don't know that I totally understand all the intricacies. I do understand, though, that we're requiring ByteDance, I believe the Chinese company, holding company that owns TikTok, to disinvest, to cut off from it. So I think that's a good first step. We need to cut off the Chinese influence. Is it realistic that we're going to get rid of TikTok? I have my doubts, but can we put some guardrails around it and make it safer and take some of the negatives out of it? I think we can. The same with Facebook, Instagram, all the other social media platforms. What makes me nervous is allowing our government to start infringing upon our free speech. So that's what I wrestle with around this issue. It's not black and white, and I think it's an issue that needs careful steps to be taken so that we don't allow our federal government to take over and infringe on our free speech.
Yeah, so it's not so. To me, the government needs to stay out of some stuff. If we're not smart enough, well, they might as well ban CNN, right? All the false content they put out there, right? Why not? Even Fox News is guilty of it. So let's look a little deeper into that before we let the government say, hey, go ahead and just take all this stuff away from us. It's a form of news and entertainment for some people, but if you can't tell the BS out of it, then good for you. I don't know what to tell you. But it's not the government's spot to come in and tell me what I can have on my phone and what I can't have on my phone.
Just briefly before I mentioned this was brought up in Ukraine, it was kind of interesting because 2 years ago I was the only Republican who said no blank checks for Ukraine. We need to have a silent strategy and be brutally attacked because I understand what is at stake and what's happening. And I don't want to send our sons and daughters to fight the wars, but we don't have a strategy, and definitely no blank checks is going to get us in really trouble if we don't really do something properly. And actually I pushed on Europeans and I said, you have to damn get to 2%. It's enough is enough. You know, you Germans are doing nothing and they're not very happy. And I'm a commissioner for European security. They never hear something from Americans, so they're all dragging me through them that I'm Trumper and I'm terrible and terrible. And I said, no, enough is enough. So I've been fighting with Europeans and force them, you know, to have not schizophrenic energy policies. It's a really problem there. That's how right now we have China, Russia, Iran, and India too right now avoiding sanctions and financing bloodshed all over the world. That is a real bloodshed, not what they're attacking Trump with. But related to TikTok, I did sponsor that bill, and I'll tell you why. It's not about TikTok. It is about Chinese Communist Party having control of data on Americans. And let's not be naive. That is terrible. We cannot let it happen. They will manipulate us and turn us into puppets and our children too. We have to win that, and that's why I was proud to sponsor that bill.
TikTok is no longer just app. We have cybersecurity. Data stealing is a national security threat. We must put checks and balances for all these new technologies, including artificial intelligence, including any apps that steal our privacy. We all believe, as a Republican, I also believe in a free trade, global trade, but it doesn't mean that people can steal data from United States and take it to another country and use against us. We must protect our data that should not go out of this country. Nobody should be taking the data. Healthcare data, whether you are using Google, whether you are using a Microsoft software, whether you are using artificial intelligence, any data that is available that must stay within the country. Thank you.
Lonnie, I appreciate you talking about the free speech element of that, because I think it is really important that we make sure very clearly that we have freedom of speech first. I think the challenge here is that, as we know, TikTok is owned by a Chinese communist company that is intentionally using it in our country to influence our children, and I'm not okay with that. I think it's bigger than that, though. If you look at what China's doing, they're influencing our country in a lot of ways. That includes buying up farmland. That includes buying up land around military installations. And to your point, Raju, they're soaking up a bunch of information that we don't want them to have. So we have to have a very honest conversation about the free speech elements of it. And I think that's especially true and absolutely true when that's a company owned by the United States or here in the United States. But when it's being manipulated on purpose by an adversary of ours and a communist government to pull information and influence our children, I'm not okay with that. I'd say ban it.
You know, I appreciate this First Amendment discussion too, because again, we have to be careful what the government takes. And we all understand after they take it, we never get it back. But I can tell you, when you look at what's happening across this country, and even Indiana, we had to actually outlaw Chinese buying property within 10 miles of our bases because, again, if you look at mental health and you look at our kids and the suicide issue we have, we know, maybe not just TikTok, but all social media is having a dramatic impact on that. And I agree that parents are the first line of defense, but I gotta tell you, we need to make sure that we don't have the Communist China Party coming in here trying to destroy America, actually steal our property. When you look at artificial intelligence, it's the next. Who's writing the ethics on artificial intelligence? You tell me. Right now, China is. And I gotta tell you, we gotta get ahead of that, and we gotta make sure that we protect our kids. You know, America kids first. And I'm telling you, that's exactly what we need to do with Chinese Communist Party. So thank you.
Okay, so it's 7:30, so what we're going to do now, we have some audience questions. Now, what I want to do, I've asked the audience pre-show what were some questions they wanted to ask, and so I wrote them down here. Now, what I'm going to ask of each candidate here, it's going to be Patrick, you're going to start here. We're going to ask that you keep it to one word, maybe one sentence, okay? Maybe one sentence, really quickly here, okay? So we're going to move fast through these questions. All right, so the first thing is, should the federal government legalize marijuana?
No. It's essentially legal right now with the Farm Bill that legalized Delta 8 and Delta 9. And I think there's police issues as well in terms of measuring sobriety.
No, and actually the emphasis on legalized marijuana is taking the emphasis away from other more effective herbs and plants that can do a better job than marijuana. So the argument that the medicinal value of marijuana will lose that is a bogus argument. We have better pharmaceuticals from other plants.
Larry.
No, I disagree. I honestly believe that it's time to legalize marijuana in the state of Indiana. They're getting it anyway. People are getting criminalized for it, and unfortunately, I just believe there's some good things medicinally, especially for cancer and things like that. I had a father that died from cancer, so I think it should be legalized in some.
Victorious.
There is actually even Colorado dealing that have material effects on adolescents, so I think legalizing it could be very dangerous, so I don't support it, and it's really, now they're struggling with this issue too in some states. No.
I support federal legalization of marijuana and based on few things. I've seen patients dying in front of me. As a speech therapist, I've seen many patients in front of me, 100-year-old, above 100-year-old. This will help many patients. And look at our four sites. All 4 states are selling marijuana legalized. In the 38 states, marijuana is legalized. So medical marijuana should be legalized.
Okay, that's kind of one sentence. One sentence. There's all right. Max.
We've seen a lot of studies recently that show the detrimental effects to young people and their brains and the mental health consequences of that. And so, no, I don't think we need to dive into legalizing marijuana.
Absolutely not. I do not agree that we should dumb down America. All you have to do is look at the other states, and all they deal with is problems with their people after they legalized it. So absolutely not.
Gateway drug leads to drug driving. Most of the fatalities I prosecuted was a mixed Long Island iced tea, marijuana, affects the nervous system. You can't respond. Look at the data from Colorado and the surrounding states. I do think there's a role for physicians to give palliative care and oversee marijuana for veterans.
Great, thank you. All right, and that question was from Fred. The next question was from Nathan. Would you be willing to shut down the federal government if you can't balance the budget? We're gonna start with Lonnie.
Yes.
Good. Great, all right. Larry. Yeah, oh, yeah. Lonnie, yeah.
Yes. And because we don't really shut down the whole government. We shut down some non-essential services, and that puts pressure on Congress to get to the table and work on that balanced budget.
There.
Yeah, absolutely. Shut it down. I mean, if we can't agree, let's shut it down.
Yeah. You could probably see my vote, but ultimately, you know, it could use a little bit of shutdown because it's been harassing people quite a bit, and essential services still would be on, but we have to do something about the spending and out of control what's happening in D.C.
To answer your question, yes.
Hey, that was good. That was really good. That was one. There we go. We're getting better. This is amazing.
Trying to get better.
That's good. Max.
There can be a time, what I struggle with is Republicans almost never have a plan for what to do next. Yes, but with a plan.
because I believe we won't miss it.
Yes, only way to stop unsustainable spending.
And then Patrick, did you answer? Yeah.
I did.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good. Okay. Who's first? All right. Okay.
I'm on the hot spot here all the time.
Okay.
First.
We have a presumptive nominee, Donald Trump. Will you support Donald Trump in this year's election? Larry, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. I am 100%
A MAGA guy, America first, make America great again. Let's go.
He is a great friend, and he's truly the right person for this time. We need to have someone like him. That's the only hope we have.
100%. I supported him in 2016. I was on his website in 2020, and I'll be supporting 2024.
We were objectively better off 3 years ago. The answer is yes, he's going to win the White House because I don't know what happens if he doesn't.
Amen. Absolutely will support Donald Trump, and I encourage every Republican to make sure we take our country back from President Biden.
Yes, he had some of the greatest policies in those 4 years during his administration.
I absolutely will support him. I just wish at times he would lower the volume on some of his criticisms.
Next to Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump's my favorite president. But yes, I'll support him.
Good. All right, that next question, we have, let's see, there's some good ones on here. Let's go with the federal government right now is trying to take away or restrict our Second Amendment rights. Will you unequivocally support defending our Second Amendment rights from any infringement from the federal government? And let's start with Victoria.
If we don't have our Second Amendment, we will not have First or anything else. That is a hill to die on for me. This is probably one of the most important ones. We can't let it happen.
Yes, United Constitution document is one of the most powerful document on this earth. We must protect that everything that's said on the Constitution. Thank you.
Absolutely, unequivocally, we don't have the First Amendment without the Second Amendment, and shout out to Riley.
I was very proud in Indiana to vote for constitutional carry and a proud member of NRA, and absolutely will fight on the Hill for that.
I'm a member of the NRA. It's a fundamental right. Scalia had it right in the Hellier decision. We need the right to bear arms in the country. As an NRA member, I do support mental health reform, and I don't want the government creating a list of who can have a gun and who can't.
I absolutely support the Second Amendment. I am a proponent of us actually starting to enforce our existing gun laws. That's where most of the problems exist.
Yes, I support the Second Amendment. I'm a member of the NRA, a hunter, and also like to shoot for sport.
Yeah, again, it's another freedom they want to take away from you that you'll never get back. And at this time, in this day and age, with everything that's coming across the border, I feel like I need my weapons more now than I've ever needed them. So don't let them take your guns away. I had to check to make sure I didn't have mine with me. But
Hey, just so you know, this is a gun-carrying church.
I know,
so, I mean,
amen. Hallelujah. So that's the way it should be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's carry.
A lot of guns. I can tell you right now, there's a lot of guns in this room at this very moment. So,
Okay, everybody
so
show
that's
your
a good
gun.
thing. Yeah, that's
No.
a good thing. All right, last thing before we get to our close is DEI has been overtaking almost everything from corporate America to schools to even the military. Do you believe DEI is good for the United States government, as in the military, or do you think we should get rid of DEI? Raju?
No.
Okay, good.
So we should make sure diversity and inclusion and equality, it has become a bogus campaign. We must protect our individual rights, and we must give equal chance to everybody.
Max?
Get rid of DEI, whether it's in the military, whether it's in finance, or whether it's in schools especially.
Get rid of DEI and get rid of CRT in our schools and make sure our kids have a chance at actually treating each other equally instead of the government trying to tell them what to do.
I'm against bullying. It's got to be, love, kindness towards people, but I'm against DEI. School boards need to have the power. Critical race theory is Marxist-Leninism, and it needs to go out.
I'm against DEI, and what's ended up happening here over the last several years is there has been a demonization of men, especially young men, and especially young white men as a result. So I think these are not constructive policies.
I'm disgusted by what I see happening in our institutions, especially our military. It is impacting morale. It is dampening recruitment. It is dampening retention, and it's weakening our military, not to mention our other institutions and our schools, and it's got to stop.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I know we talk a lot about China, being afraid of China, blah, blah, blah. We better be afraid of the American government, too. To me, I believe that they may be some of our worst enemies. So not only hold China accountable, but hold America accountable also.
I understand how dangerous this Marxist theory is, and I not just talk about against it. I actually fought against Republicans in the State House, against social emotional bill that actually was a gateway CRT into all of this BS that now is destructive for the country, and that was a lonely fight. So hopefully we just fight for that, not just talk.
Good. All right. So now we're going to give you, and actually we're going to shorten. I told you 2-minute close, but I think we're going to shorten it to 1 minute and 15 seconds. So Bronson, if you want to throw 1 minute 15 seconds back on, and Victoria, since we started with Raju, we're going to start with you to give your close.
Well, thank you so much. It has been my honor. It's been my privilege. And I'll tell you that I didn't really think that I want to be in Washington, D.C. It's a crazy place. And I wanted to spend some time off and get my sanity back. I go usually on the last flight to Washington, D.C. and come back in the first flight. But I know what is at stake. And I know that I've been in a lot of trenches. And I know that we must win this war. And I've been battle tested. And I tell you that I will never give up. I will never give in. And I will deliver for you because we are the greatest republic that ever existed in the history of the world. And we are going to win for all of the people that sacrifice their lives for our freedoms and have the American dream for our children alive. And I'm telling you, if we don't do it this election, and if we don't help President Trump to deliver, and if we don't win, we might not see the future of our country, what we've seen before. This is very crucial times, and it will take people that willing to fight the real fight in the trenches, not be a talking head on TVs and do presentations. It will be my honor, and I would appreciate your vote, and thank you so much. It's been my privilege serving you.
And we're going to go... Hey, Larry, we'll go with you. We'll come right back down this way. So, Larry, 2 minutes.
I look forward to being last. So, again, I'm a grassroots campaign guy. A lot of you can follow me on Facebook. I'm not a millionaire. I can't dump $1 million or $2 million in my campaign and buy my way to Washington, D.C. Or I don't know how much you guys have dumped in. I don't care, really. But it's time to make America great again. It's time for us to hold these people on this stage accountable. You have to pick the person that you feel like is going to fight for you. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you guys elect me and send me to Washington, D.C., it'll be the best thing you ever did because I'm going to fight with you. I'm not going to get homesick. My kids are raised. In fact, I might just stay out there. But no, seriously, I'm in this for us, for the American people, for the 5th District of the state of Indiana. I love Indiana and I love my country. Like I said, I've served as a firefighter. I see the fentanyl, I see the drugs, I see all that stuff that comes into our communities, and it's pathetic. And if we don't stop what's going on at the border, if we don't hold the Biden crime family accountable for the crimes they've committed against our country in the last 3.5 years, if you don't put people in Congress that are going to go up there and fight for you, which we have not had, it is time to put somebody like you in Congress, because I am going to fight for you. I'm tired of it. A lot of these people don't know what it's like. It doesn't matter. $4 gasoline doesn't matter to them. $4 milk doesn't matter to them. $4 eggs doesn't matter. It matters to me. So I just ask for your vote. My name is Larry Savage, and I thank you for hearing me tonight.
Oh, yeah, Lonnie. Yeah.
All right, sorry, I wasn't paying attention, but if you don't mind, I'm going to keep my notes handy because I am a little nervous. I don't do this for a living, and I do have a few things I want to make sure that I get across. We touched on a lot of topics tonight, but the number one topic that still remains important to me is securing our borders and protecting our families and stopping the decimation of our families and our communities. With my experience as a father, a military veteran, and 2 decades on the front lines on the war on drugs, I think that I'm uniquely qualified for this time in our country's history and for this battle, so that we can all live with a sense of security and peace again once in our country. So if there's one thing I want you to remember about me tonight, is that L.D. Powell is committed to securing our borders, and I will go to work and fight that battle so that we can all live safely and our children and grandchildren have a safe and prosperous future again. Thank you.
I too have a grassroots campaign, and one of the things that saddened me is the frustration that many of you have about our Congress being able to solve all our problems, because simply we don't have to tolerate that nonsense anymore. You know, we don't need to accept having illegal immigrants come over the border by the millions. And we don't need to accept an economy where the average person is stressed out every week about buying groceries. And we certainly, absolutely, should not be able to tolerate politicians spending 10, 20, 30, 40 years in Congress and enriching themselves. So, you know, we're in a unique position here. As voters, we have always had the opportunity, well, I guess we've always had the carrot to elect someone into office. We need to get control over the stick in terms of who actually gets out of Congress. My campaign is relying on us getting a hold of that stick, and that stick is congressional term limits. So the whole thrust of my campaign involves, first of all, term limiting the Congress, and then start dealing with our real problems, which includes things like border safety, other safety, higher education costs, and so forth. So I didn't tell you much about myself at the start. You can find out about myself at patrickmforcongress.com. I would be honored to receive your vote. Thank you all for coming, and have a safe trip home. Thank you.
I too ask for your vote. I'm a compassionate conservative. I'm a strict constitutionalist. A couple issues we didn't touch on. I believe life begins at conception. That 14th Amendment. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness means we protect life from conception until when that heart stops beating. Henry Hyde was a role model. I believe in the Hyde Amendment. No tax dollars go for abortion, and life begins at conception, and that's a big part of the debate. Secondly, we didn't touch on the budget deficit. It's a moral issue. It's mortgaging our children's future away. We stopped the excessive spending, the qualitative easing, all the printing of money, the stimulus handouts. Biden has run our country into the ground. We must turn America around again. I think we do that through zero-based budgeting. Right now, if you don't do anything, budget goes up about 3%. Most people don't know that. Agencies should justify every penny they get, and you go back to square one every year, just like Coca-Cola and all the companies. It would be a privilege and an honor to represent you in the United States Congress. I ask for your vote on May 7. I think we've got the best website. Go there to look at the articles and the policies, markhurt.org. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I just, again, I want to talk about how honored I am and how humbled I am to actually be up here. I can tell you it's a great honor for me to serve this district for 6 years, and I would be absolutely blessed and honored to serve you in the Indiana 5th Congressional District for U.S. Congress. I can tell you I started the conversation with this idea that we live in the greatest nation ever known to the human race, and it takes everyone here to make sure that we shout that from the rooftops, because I can tell you the enemy is winning because they have a small minority of people yelling louder than us. So let's shout from the rooftops what's right with America. I tell you heard all the issues up here. You can check out my voting record at gowithchuckgoodrich.com. But here's what I want to leave you with. I want to leave you with this. It takes every single person in here to change the government. And I can tell anybody sits on the sidelines, we need all folks to get out and vote. We got to take the presidency back. We got to have the Senate, and we've got to make sure we keep the House in a bigger majority. And so I just encourage you to get out, get in a grassroots. I have a grassroots, and I would love to have your support. My name is Chuck Goodrich. I'm asking for your vote. God bless you. Stay safe. And the biggest thing is, please, all of us just take care of one another. We can do this without the government.
Three things. We didn't get to talk about the cost of living, but when I walk around the district and talk to folks, that's the number one issue out there, the rising cost of living. Talk to me afterward. We need to have that conversation. Second thing, if you go to my website, maxforindiana.com, you can see a bunch more information about me, but I can't do this alone. I need you guys to help with that. We've got a bunch of information on the table as well and signs on the way out. Third thing, we need better than an angry president that doesn't know what's happening in the White House or beyond. We need better than schools that pander to the left and harm our children. We need better than a border that is essentially just a line on a map. We need better than a national debt that is an absolute security crisis. And we need better than a Congress that is comfortable with talking and losing. We need a representative from the 5th District that honors God, that is conservative, and will act and win. So I'm asking for your vote on May 7th. I appreciate it.
Hello, my fellow Republicans. Thank you, Pastor Micah Beckwith, for hosting this beautiful event, able to share my vision and my plan for you. We haven't covered election integrity. We have a Attorney General, the best Attorney General in the country. Todd Rokita is here. Todd Rokita, when he was a Secretary of State, he fought for election integrity, voter ID. That is very important. Voter fraud. Election is a democratic process. We must fight for voter fraud and make sure election integrity is maintained in 2024 so that we don't lose our White House position. I am Raju. I am for you. My website is rajuforcongress.com. It has more information. I am talking about the real issues. I'm not a career politician. I never ran for office. I am going to fight for you in the 5th District. My experience from healthcare, business, government, that will bring it to the Congress. Not many candidates, not many congressmen can have those qualities and experiences for them. I live in the district. I worked in the district. I lived in the state of Indiana for 30 years. I ask your support, your vote. Please vote for me. Vote for Raju on or before May 7th. God bless you. God bless United States of America. Thank you.
All right. Well, candidates, can we give it up one more time for our amazing candidates here? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. If you're a candidate running for office, like whether it's PC, delegate, state rep, anything in between, would you stand so that we can recognize you as well? Yeah. Look at that. school board. Yes, this is great. Thank you all. So we've got people running for school board, running for state rep, running for PC delegate, and everything in between. So thank you all for what you're doing. I see Kim Harris back there with Todd Rakita's office. Give it up for Kim. So, all right. And I think Todd's coming a little bit later, right? So he will be here. He's just coming from an event up in Lake County. So he's on his way. So you'll get to see him maybe at the end here. We'll bring him up to ask him a few questions. But